the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Vana Parva. Section 76, Nalopakliyana Parva continued. Vrihadasva said, beholding the agitation of the virtuous and wise Nala, Kisari returned unto Damayanti and related everything unto her. And thereupon Damayanti with a sorrowful heart and eager to behold Nala, again dispatched Kisari to her mother, asking her to say on her behalf, suspecting Vahuka to be Nala, I have tried him in various ways. My doubt now only relates to his appearance. I intend to examine him myself. O mother, either let him enter the palace, or give me permission to go to him, and arrange this with the knowledge of my father or without it. And thus addressed by Damayanti, that lady communicated unto Bhima the intention of his daughter, and upon learning it, the king gave his consent. And, O bull of the Bharata race, having obtained the consent both of her father and mother, Damayanti caused Nala to be brought to her apartments. And as soon as he saw Damayanti unexpectedly, King Nala was overwhelmed with grief and sorrow, and bathed in tears. And that best of women, Damayanti, also, upon beholding King Nala in that condition, was sorely afflicted with grief. And, O monarch, herself clad in a piece of red cloth, and wearing matted locks, and covered with dirt and dust, Damayanti then addressed Vahuka, saying, O Vahuka, hast thou ever seen any person acquainted with duty, who hath gone away, deserting his sleeping wife in the forest? Who, except the virtuous Nala, could go away, deserting in the woods, his dear and unoffending wife overcome with fatigue? Of what offense was I guilty in the eyes of that monarch since my early youth, that he should go away deserting me in the woods while asleep overcome with fatigue? Why should he whom I formerly chose in preference to the gods themselves abandon his ever devoted and loving wife who had become the mother also of his children? Before the fire, and in presence also of the celestials, he had taken my hand, vowing, verily I will be thine. Oh, where was that vow when he deserted me, O repressor of foes? While Damayanti was saying all this, tears of sorrow began to flow plentifully from her eyes. And beholding her thus afflicted with grief, Nala also, shedding tears, black as those of the gazelle with extremities of reddish hue, said, O timid one, neither the loss of my kingdom nor my desertion of thee was my act. Both were due to Kali. And, O foremost of virtuous women, lamenting for me day and night, and overcome with sorrow, thou hadst in the woods cursed Kali, and so he began to dwell in my body, burning in consequence of thy curse. Indeed, burning with thy curse, he lived within me like fire within fire. O blessed girl, that our sorrows might terminate, that wretch have I overcome by my observances and austerities. The sinful wretch hath already left me, and it is for this that I have come hither. My presence here, O fair lady, is for thy sake. I have no other object. But, O timid one, can any other woman, forsaking her loving and devoted husband, ever choose a second lord like thee? At the command of the king, messengers are ranging this entire earth, saying, Bhima's daughter will of her own accord choose a second husband worthy of her. Immediately on hearing this, the son of Bhangasura hath arrived here. Hearing these lamentations of Nala, Damayanti, frightened and trembling, said with joined hands, It behoveth thee not, O blessed one, to suspect any fault in me, O ruler of the Nishadas, passing over the celestials themselves, I choose thee as my lord. It was to bring thee hither that the Brahmanas had gone out in all directions, even to all the sides of the horizon, singing my words, in the form of ballads. At last, O king, a learned Brahmana named Panala had found thee in Kasala in the palace of Rituparna. When thou hadst returned a fit answer to those words of his, it was then, O Nashadha, that I devised this scheme to recover thee. Except thee, O Lord of earth, there is no one in this world, who in one day can clear, O king, 100 yojanas with horses. O monarch, touching thy feet I can swear truly that I have not, even in thought, committed any sin. May the all-witnessing air that courseth through this world, take my life, if I have committed any sin. May the sun that ever courseth through the sky take my life, if I have committed any sin. May the moon that dwelleth within every creature as a witness, take my life, if I have committed any sin. Let the three gods that sustain the triple worlds in their entirety, declare truly, or let them forsake me today. And thus addressed by her, the wind god said from the sky, O Nala, I tell thee truly that she hath done no wrong. O king, Damayanti, well guarding the honor of thy family, hath enhanced it. Of this we are the witnesses, as we have been her protectors for these 3 years. It is for thy sake that she hath devised this unrivaled scheme, for except thee, none on earth is capable of travelling in a single day 100 yojanas. O monarch, thou hast obtained Bhima's daughter, and she hath also obtained thee. Thou needst not entertain any suspicion but be united with thy partner. And after the wind god had said this, a floral shower fell there, and the celestial kettledrum began to play, and auspicious breezes began to blow. And beholding those wonders, O Bharata, King Nala, the repressor of foes, cast away all his doubts in respect of Damayanti. And then that lord of earth, remembering the king of serpents, wore that pure garment and regained his native form. And beholding her righteous lord in his own form, Bhima's daughter of faultless limbs embraced him, and began to weep aloud. And King Nala also embraced Bhima's daughter devoted to him, as before, and also his children, and experienced great delight. And burying her face in his bosom, the beauteous Damayanti of large eyes began to sigh heavily, remembering her griefs. And overwhelmed with sorrow, that tiger among men stood for some time, clasping the dust-covered Damayanti of sweet smiles. And, O king, the queen mother then, with a glad heart, told Bhima all that had passed between Nala and Damayanti. And the mighty monarch answered, Let Nala pass this day in peace, tomorrow I shall see him after his bath and prayers, with Damayanti by his side. And, O king, they passed that night pleasantly, in relating to each other the past incidents of their life in the forest. And with hearts filled with joy, the princes of Vidarbha and Nala began to pass their days in the palace of King Bhima, intent upon making each other happy. And it was in the 4th year after the loss of his kingdom that Nala was reunited with his wife, and all his desires gratified, once more experienced the highest bliss. And Damayanti rejoiced exceedingly in having recovered her lord, even as fields of tender plants on receiving a shower. And Bhima's daughter, thus recovering her lord, obtained her wish, and blazed forth in beauty, her weariness gone, her anxieties dispelled, and herself swelling with joy, ever like a night that is lit by the bright disk of the moon. Thus ends the 76th section in the Nalopakyana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 77, Nalopakyana Parva continued. Vrihadasva said, having passed that night, King Nala, decked in ornaments and with Damayanti by his side, presented himself in due time before the king. And Nala saluted his father-in-law with becoming humility, and after him the fair Damayanti paid her respects to her father. And the exalted Bhima, with great joy, received him as a son, and honoring him duly along with his devoted wife, comforted them in proper words. And duly accepting the homage rendered unto him, King Nala offered his father-in-law his services as became him. And seeing Nala arrived, the citizens were in great joy. And there arose in the city a loud uproar of delight. And the citizens decorated the city with flags and standards and garlands of flowers. And the streets were watered and decked in floral wreaths and other ornaments. And at their gates citizens piled flowers, and their temples and shrines were all adorned with flowers. And Rituparna heard that Vahuka had already been united with Damayanti. And the king was glad to hear of all this. And calling unto him King Nala, he asked his forgiveness. And the intelligent Nala also asked Rituparna's forgiveness, showing diverse reasons. And that foremost of speakers versed in the truth, King Rituparna, after being thus honored by Nala, said with a countenance expressive of wonder, these words unto the ruler of the Nishadhas: by good fortune it is that regaining the company of thy own wife, thou hast obtained happiness. O Nashadha, while dwelling in disguise at my house, I hope I did not wrong thee in any way, O Lord of the earth. If knowingly or unknowingly I have done thee any wrong, it behoveth thee to forgive me. Hearing this, Nala replied, thou hast not, O monarch, done me ever so little an injury. And if thou hast, it hath not awakened my ire, for surely thou shouldst be forgiven by me. Thou wert formerly my friend, and, O ruler of men, thou art also related to me. Henceforth I shall find greater delight in thee. O king, with all my desires gratified, I lived happily in thy abode, in fact more happily there than in my own house. This thy horse lore is in my keeping. If thou wishest, O king, I will make it over to thee. Saying this, Nashadha gave unto Rituparna that science, and the latter took it with the ordained rites. And, O monarch, the royal son of Bhangasura, having obtained the mysteries of equestrian science and having given unto the ruler of the Nishadhas the mysteries of dice, went to his own city, employing another person for his charioteer. And, O king, after Rituparna had gone, King Nala did not stay long in the city of Kundila. Thus ends the 77th section in the Nalopakyana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 78, Nalopakyana Parva continued. Vrihadasva said, O son of Kunti, the ruler of the Nishadhas having dwelt there for a month, set out from that city with Bhima's permission and accompanied by only a few flowers for the country of the Nishadhas. With a single car white in hue, 16 elephants, 50 horses, and 600 infantry, that illustrious king, causing the earth itself to tremble, entered the country of the Nishadhas, without loss of a moment and swelling with rage. And the mighty son of Virasena, approaching his brother Pushkara, said unto him, we will play again, for I have earned vast wealth. Let Damayanti and all else that I have be my stake, and let, O Pushkara, thy kingdom be thy stake. Let the play begin again. This is my certain determination. Blessed be thou, let us stake all we have along with our lives. Having won over and acquired another's wealth or kingdom, it is a high duty, says the ordinance, to stake it when the owner demands. Or, if thou dost not relish play with dice, let the play with weapons begin. O king, let me or thyself have peace by a single combat. That this ancestral kingdom should, under all circumstances and by any means, be recovered, there is the authority of sages for holding. And, O Pushkara, choose thou one of these two things, gambling with dice or bending the bow in battle. Thus addressed by Nashadha, Pushkara, sure of his own success, laughingly answered that monarch, saying, O Nashadha, it is by good fortune that thou hast earned wealth again to stake. It is by good fortune also that the Mayanti's ill luck hath at last come to an end. And, O king, it is by good fortune that thou art still alive with thy wife, O thou of mighty arms. It is evident that the Mayanti, adorned with this wealth of thine that I will win, will wait upon me like an Apsara in heaven upon Indra. O Nashadha, I daily recollect thee and am even waiting for thee, since I derive no pleasure from gambling with those that are not connected with me by blood. Winning over today the beauteous Damayanti of faultless features, I shall regard myself fortunate, indeed, since she it is that hath ever dwelt in my heart. Hearing these words of that incoherent braggart, Nala in anger desired to cut off his head with a scimitar. With a smile, however, though his eyes were red in anger, King Nala said, Let us play. Why do you speak so now? Having vanquished me, you can say anything you like. Then the play commenced between Pushkara and Nala. And blessed be Nala who at a single throw won his wealth and treasures back along with the life of his brother that also had been staked. And the king, having won, smilingly said unto Pushkara, This whole kingdom without a thorn in its side is now undisturbedly mine. And, O worst of kings, thou canst not now even look at the princess of Vidarbha. With all thy family, thou art now, O fool, reduced to the position of her slave. But my former defeat at thy hands was not due to any act of thine. Thou knowest it not, O fool, that it was Kali who did it all. I shall not, therefore, impute to thee the faults of others. Live happily as thou choosest, I grant thee thy life. I also grant thee thy portion in the paternal kingdom along with all necessaries. And, O hero, without doubt, my affection towards thee is now the same as before. My fraternal love also for thee will never know any diminution. O Pushkara, thou art my brother, live thou for 100 years. And Nala of unbaffled prowess, having comforted his brother thus, gave him permission to go to his own town, having embraced him repeatedly. And Pushkara himself, thus comforted by the ruler of the Nishadhas, saluted that righteous king, and addressed him, O monarch, saying these words with joined hands, Let thy fame be immortal and live thou happily for 10,000 years, thou who grantest me, O king, both life and refuge. And entertained by the king, Pushkara dwelt there for a month and then went to his own town accompanied by a large force and many obedient servants and his own kindred, his heart filled with joy. And that bull among men all the while blazed forth in beauty of person like a second sun. And the blessed ruler of the Nishadhas, having established Pushkara and made him wealthy and freed him from troubles, entered his richly decorated palace. And the ruler of the Nishadhas, having entered his palace, comforted the citizens. And all the citizens and the subjects from the country horripilated in joy. And the people headed by the officers of state said with joined hands, O king, we are truly glad today throughout the city and the country. We have obtained today our ruler, like the gods their chief of 100 sacrifices. Thus ends the 78th section in the Nalopakyana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 79, Vana Parva continued. Vrihadasva said, after the festivities had commenced in the city that was full of joy and without anxiety of any kind, the king with a large force brought Damayanti from her father's home. And her father too, that slayer of hostile heroes, Bhima of terrible prowess and immeasurable soul, sent his daughter having honored her duly. And upon the arrival of the princess of Vidarbha accompanied by her son and daughter, King Nala began to pass his days in joy like the chief of the celestials in the gardens of Nandana. And the king of undying fame, having regained his kingdom and becoming illustrious among monarchs of the island of Jambu, began once more to rule it. And he duly performed numerous sacrifices with abundant gifts to Brahmanas. O great king, thou also wilt with thy kindred and relatives, so blaze forth in effulgence soon. For, O foremost of men, it was thus that subjugator of hostile cities, King Nala, had fallen into distress along with his wife, in consequence, O bull of Bharata race, of dice. And, O Lord of the earth, Nala suffered such dire woe all alone and recovered his prosperity, whereas thou, O son of Pandu, with heart fixed on virtue, art sporting in joy in this great forest, accompanied by thy brothers and Krishna. When thou art also, O monarch, mixing daily with blessed Brahmanas versed in the Vedas and their branches, thou hast little cause for sorrow. This history, besides, of the Naga Kakotka, of the Mayanti, of Nala and of that royal sage Rituparna, is destructive of evil. And, O thou of unfading glory, this history, destructive of the influence of Kali, is capable, O king, of comforting persons like thee when they listen to it. And reflecting upon the uncertainty of success of human exertion, it behoveth thee not to joy or grieve at prosperity or adversity. Having listened to this history, he comforted, O king, and yield not to grief. It behoveth thee not, O great king, to pine under calamity. Indeed, men of self-possession, reflecting upon the caprice of destiny and the fruitlessness of exertion, never suffer themselves to be depressed. They that will repeatedly recite this noble history of Nala, and that will hear it recited, will never be touched by adversity. He that listeneth to this old and excellent history hath all his purposes crowned with success and, without doubt, obtaineth fame, besides sons and grandsons and animals, a high position among men, and health and joy. And, O king, the fear also that thou entertainest, viz., someone skilled in dice will summon me, I will for once dispel. O thou of invincible prowess, I know the science of dice in its entirety. I am gratified with thee, take this lore, O son of Kunti, I will tell unto thee. Vasampayana continued, King Yudhishthira then, with a glad heart, said unto Vrihadasva, O illustrious one, I desire to learn the science of dice from thee. The rishi then gave his dice lore unto the high-souled son of Pandu, and having given it unto him, that great ascetic went to the sacred waters of Hayasisha for a bath. And after Vrihadasva had gone away, Yudhishthira of firm was heard from Brahmanas and ascetics that came to him from various directions and from places of pilgrimage and mountains and forests, that Arjuna of high intelligence and capable of drawing the bow with his left hand, was still engaged in the austerest of ascetic penances, living upon air alone. And he heard that the mighty armed Parth was engaged in such fierce asceticism that none else before him had ever been engaged in such penances. And Dhananjaya, the son of Pritha, engaged in ascetic austerities with regulated vows and fixed mind and observing the vow of perfect silence, was, he heard, like the blazing god of justice himself in his embodied form. And, O King Yudhishthira, the son of Pandu, hearing that his dear brother Jaya, the son of Kunti, was engaged in such asceticism in the great forest, began to grieve for him. And with a heart burning in grief, the eldest son of Pandu, seeking consolation in that mighty forest, held converse with the Brahmanas possessed of various knowledge who were living with him there. Thus ends the 79th section in the Nalopakyana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 80, Tirthaitara Parva. Janamejaya said, O Holy One, after my great-grandfather Parth had gone away from the woods of Kamyak, what did the sons of Pandu do in the absence of that hero capable of drawing the bow with his left hand? It seemed to me that mighty bowman and vanquisher of armies was their refuge, as Vishnu of the celestials. How did my heroic grandsires pass their time in the forest, deprived of the company of that hero, who resembled Indra himself in prowess and never turned his back in battle? Vasampayana said, after Arjuna of unbaffled prowess had gone away from Kamyak, the sons of Pandu, O son, were filled with sorrow and grief. And the Pandavas with cheerless hearts very much resembled pearls unstrung from a wreath, or birds shorn of their wings. And without that hero of white steeds, that forest looked like the Chaitraratviya woods when deprived of the presence of Kuvara. And, O Janamejaya, those tigers among men, the sons of Pandu deprived of the company of Arjuna, continued to live in Kamyak in perfect cheerlessness. And, chief of the Bharata race, those mighty warriors endowed with great prowess slew with pure arrows various kinds of sacrificial animals for the Brahmanas. And those tigers among men and repressors of foes, daily slaying those wild animals and sanctifying them properly, offered them unto the Brahmanas. And it was thus, O King, that those bulls among men afflicted with sorrow lived there with cheerless hearts after Dhananjaya's departure. The princess of Panchala in particular, remembering her third lord, addressed the anxious Yudhishthira and said, that Arjuna who with 2 hands rivals the 1,000-armed Arjuna of old, alas, without that foremost of the sons of Pandu, this forest doth not seem at all beautiful in my eyes. Without him, whenever I cast my eyes, this earth seems to be forlorn. Even this forest with its blossoming trees and so full of wonders, without Arjuna seems not so delightful as before. Without him who is like a mass of blue clouds in hue, who hath the prowess of an infuriated elephant, and whose eyes are like the leaves of the lotus, this Kamyak forest doth not seem beautiful to me. Remembering that hero capable of drawing the bow with his left hand, and the twang of whose bow sounds like the roar of thunder, I cannot feel any happiness, O King. And O monarch, hearing her lament in this strain, that slayer of hostile heroes, Bhimsena, addressed Draupadi in these words, O blessed lady of slender waist, the agreeable words thou utterest delight my heart like the quaffing of nectar. Without him whose arms are long and symmetrical, and stout and like unto a couple of iron misses and round and marked by the scars of the bowstrings and graced with the bow and sword and other weapons and encircled with golden bracelets and like unto a couple of 5-headed snakes, without that tiger among men the sky itself seemed to be without the sun. Without that mighty armed one relying upon whom the Panchalas and the Kauravas fear not the sternly exerting ranks of the celestials themselves, without that illustrious hero relying upon whose arms we all regard our foes as already vanquished and the earth itself as already conquered, without that Falguna, I cannot obtain any peace in the woods of Kamyak. The different directions also, wherever I cast my eyes, appear to be empty. After Bhima had concluded, Nakula the son of Pandu, with voice choked with tears, said, "Without him whose extraordinary deeds on the field of battle constitute the talk of even the gods, without that foremost of warriors, what pleasure can we have in the woods? Without him who having gone towards the north had vanquished mighty Gandharv chiefs by hundreds, and who having obtained numberless handsome horses of the Tatiri and Kalmasha species all endowed with the speed of the wind, presented them from affection unto his brother the king, on the occasion of the great Rajasuya sacrifice, without that dear and illustrious one, without that terrible warrior born after Bhima, without that hero equal unto a god, I do not desire to live in the Kamyak woods any longer." After Nakula's lamentations, Sakdeva said, "He who having vanquished mighty warriors in battle won wealth and virgins and brought them unto the king on the occasion of the great Rajasuya sacrifice, that hero of immeasurable splendor who having vanquished single-handed the assembled Yadvas in battle, ravished Subhadra with the consent of Vasudeva, he who having invaded the dominion of the illustrious Drupda gave, O Bharata, unto the preceptor Drona his tuition fee, beholding, O king, that Jishnu's bed of grass empty in our asylum, my heart refuses consolation. A migration from this forest is what, or repressor of foes, I would prefer, for without that hero this forest cannot be delightful." Thus ends the 80th section in the Tirthayatara Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 81, Tirthayatra Parva continued. Visusampayana said, hearing these words of his brothers as also of Krishna, all of whom were anxious on account of Dhananjaya, King Yudhishthira the Just, became melancholy. And at that time he saw before him the celestial Rishi Narada, blazing with Brahmi beauty and like unto a fire flaming up in consequence of sacrificial libation. And beholding him come, King Yudhishthira with his brothers stood up and duly worshipped the illustrious one. And endued with blazing energy, the handsome chief of the Kuru race, surrounded by his brothers, shone like the god of 100 sacrifices encircled by the celestials. And Yajnasni in obedience to the dictates of morality adhered to her lords, the sons of Pritha, like Savitri to the Vedas or the race of the sun to the peak of Meru. And the illustrious Rishi Narada, accepting that worship, comforted the son of Dharma in proper terms. And, O sinless one, addressing the high-souled King Yudhishthira the Just, the Rishi said, "Tell me, O foremost of virtuous men, what it is that thou seekest and what I can do for thee." At this, the royal son of Dharma bowing with his brothers unto Narada, who was the revered of the celestials, told him with joined hands, "O thou that art highly blessed and worshipped by all the worlds, when thou art gratified with me, I regard all my wishes in consequence of thy grace, as already fulfilled, O thou of excellent woes. If, O sinless one, I with my brothers deserve thy favor, it behoveth thee, O best of Munis, to dispel the doubt that is in my mind. It behoveth thee to tell me in detail what merit is his that goeth round the worlds, desirous of beholding the sacred waters and shrines that are on it." Narada said, "Listen, O king, with attention to what the intelligent Bhishma had heard before from Pulastriya. Once, O blessed one, that foremost of virtuous men, Bhishma, while in the observance of the Pitya vow, lived, O king, in the company of Munis in a delightful and sacred region, near the source of the Ganga, that is resorted to by the celestial rishis and Gandharvas and the celestials themselves. And while living there, the resplendent one gratified with his oblations the Pitris, the gods, and the rishis, according to the rites inculcated in the scriptures. And once on a time, while the illustrious one was engaged in his silent recitations, he beheld Pulastya, that best of rishis, of wonderful appearance. And beholding that austere ascetic blazing with beauty, he was filled with great delight and exceeding wonder. And, O Bharata, that foremost of virtuous men, Bhishma, then worshipped that blessed rishi according to the rites of the ordinance. And purifying himself and with rapt attention, he approached that best of Brahmarshis, with the argya on his head. And uttering aloud his name, he said, O thou of excellent woes, blessed be thou. I am Bhishma, thy slave. At sight of thee, I am freed from all my sins. And saying this, that foremost of virtuous men, Bhishma, restraining speeches stood, O Yudhishthira, in silence and with joined hands. And beholding Bhishma, that foremost of the Kurus, reduced and emaciated by the observance of vows and the study of the Vedas, the Muni became filled with joy. Thus ends the 81st section in the Tirthayatara Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 82, Tirthayatra Parva continued. Pulastya said, O thou of excellent woes, I have been much gratified with thy humility, thy self-control, and thy truth, thou blessed one versed in morality. O sinless one, it is for this virtue of thine which thou hast acquired from regard to thy ancestors, that I have been gratified with thee, and thou hast, O son, obtained a sight of my person. O Bhishma, my eyes can penetrate into everything. Tell me what I may do for thee. O sinless one, O thou foremost of the Kuru race, I will grant thee whatever thou mayst ask me. Bhishma said, O highly blessed one, when thou who art worshipped by the three worlds hast been gratified with me, and when I have obtained a sight of thy exalted self, I regard myself as already crowned with success. But, O thou foremost of virtuous persons, if I have deserved thy favor, I will tell thee my doubts, and it behoveth thee to dispel them. O Holy One, I have some religious doubts in respect of Tirthas. Speak of those to me in detail, I desire to hear thee. O thou that resemblest a celestial himself, what is his merit, O regenerate Rishi, who goeth round the whole earth visiting shrines? O tell me this with certainty. Pulastya said, O son, listen with attention. I will tell thee of the merit which attacheth to Tirthas and which constituteth the refuge of the Rishis. He whose hands and feet and mind and knowledge and asceticism and acts are under wholesome control, enjoyeth the fruits of Tirthas. He who has ceased to accept gifts, he that is contented, he that is free from pride enjoys the fruits of Tirthas. He that is without sin, he that acts without purpose, he that eats light, he that has his senses under control, he that is free from every sin, enjoys the fruits of Tirthas. O king, he that is free from anger, he that adhereth to truth, he that is firm in vows, he that regardeth all creatures as his own self, enjoyeth the fruits of Tirthas. In the Vedas the Rishis have declared in due order the sacrifices and also their fruits here and hereafter truly. O Lord of earth, those sacrifices cannot be accomplished by him that is poor, for those sacrifices require various materials and diverse things in large measures. These, therefore, can be performed by kings or sometimes by other men of prosperity and wealth. O Lord of men, that right, however, which men without wealth, without allies, singly, without wife and children, and destitute of means, are capable of accomplishing, and the merit of which is equal unto the sacred fruits of sacrifices, I will now declare unto thee, thou best of warriors. O thou best of the Bharata race, sojourns in tirthas which are meritorious and which constitute one of the high mysteries of the rishis, are even superior to sacrifices. He is a poor man who having gone to a tirtha hath not fasted for 3 nights, who hath not given away gold, and who hath not distributed kin. Indeed, one acquireth not, by the performance of the Agnistoma and other sacrifices distinguished by large gifts, that merit which one acquireth by a sojourn to a tirtha. In the world of men, there is that tirtha of the God of gods, celebrated over the 3 worlds by the name of Pushkara. One that sojourneth there becometh equal unto that deity. O high-souled son of the Kuru race, during the 2 twilights and midday there is the presence of 100,000 millions of tirthas in Pushkara. The Adityas, the Vasis, the Rudras, the Sadhyas, the Maruts, the Gandharvas, and the Apsaras are ever present, O exalted one, in Pushkara. It was there, O king, that the gods, the Daityas and Brahmarshis, having performed ascetic devotions there, obtained great merit and finally attained to godhood. Men of self-control, by even thinking mentally of Pushkara, are cleansed from their sins, and regarded in heaven. O king, the illustrious grandsire having the lotus for his seat, had dwelt with great pleasure in this tirtha. O blessed one, it was in Pushkara that the gods, with the rishis having acquired of old great merit, finally obtained the highest success. The person who, devoted to the worship of the gods and the Pitris, batheth in this tirtha obtaineth, it hath been said by the wise, merit that is equal to 10 times that of the horse sacrifice. Having gone to the Pushkara woods, he that feedeth even one Brahmana, becometh happy here and hereafter, O Bhishma, for that act. He that supporteth himself on vegetables and roots and fruits, may with pious regard and without disrespect, give even such fare to a Brahmana. And, O best of kings, the man of wisdom, even by such a gift, will acquire the merit of a horse sacrifice. Those illustrious persons among Brahmanas or Kshatriyas or Vaisyas or Sudras that bathe in Pushkara are freed from the obligation of rebirth. That man in special who visits Pushkara on the full moon of the month of Kartika, acquireth everlasting regions in the abode of Brahma. He that thinketh with joined hands morning and evening, of the Pushkara, practically batheth, O Bharata, in every tirtha. Whether a male or a female, whatever sins one may commit since birth, are all destroyed as soon as one batheth in Pushkara. As the slayer of Madhu is the foremost of all the celestials, so is Pushkara, O king, the foremost of all tirthas. A man by residing with purity and regulated vows for 12 years in Pushkara, acquireth the merit of all the sacrifices, and goeth to the abode of Brahma. The merit of one who performeth the Agnihotra for full 100 years, is equal to that of him who resideth for the single month of Kartika in Pushkara. There are 3 white hillocks and 3 springs known from the remotest times, we do not know why, by the name of the Pushkaras. It is difficult to go to Pushkara, it is difficult to undergo ascetic austerities at Pushkara, it is difficult to give away at Pushkara, and it is difficult to live at Pushkara. Having dwelt for 12 nights at Pushkara with regulated diet and vows, and having walked round the place, one must go to Jambumarga. One that goeth to Jambumarga, which is resorted to by the celestials, the rishis, and the Pitris, acquireth the merit of the horse sacrifice and the fruition of all his wishes. The man that resideth there for 5 nights, hath his soul cleansed from all sins. He never sinketh into hell, but acquireth high success. Leaving Jambumarga one must go to Tandulikasrama. He that goeth there never sinketh into hell but ascendeth to the abode of Brahma. He that goeth to the lake of Agastya and occupieth himself with the worship of the Pitris and Celestials, fasting for 3 nights, acquireth, O king, the fruit of the Agnistoma. Going thither, he that liveth on vegetables or fruits acquireth the status called Kaumara. One should next proceed to the beautiful asylum of Kanva, which is worshipped by the whole world. That sacred wood characterized by holiness, existeth, O bull of the Bharata race, from very remote times. As soon as one entereth it, he is freed from all his sins. He who with regulated diet and vows worshippeth the Pitris and the gods there, obtaineth the fruit of a sacrifice that is capable of bestowing the fruition of all one's desires. Having walked round this asylum, one must then go to the spot where Yayati fell from heaven. He that goeth thither, acquireth the merit of a horse sacrifice. One must then go to Malayakla with regulated diet and senses subdued. And having bathed in the tirtha called Koti, one obtaineth the merit of a horse sacrifice. A virtuous man should next proceed to the tirtha of Sthanu, the husband of Uma, known over the 3 worlds by the name of Bhadravata. That best of men who goeth to Bhadravata, beholdeth Isna and obtaineth the fruit of a gift of 1,000 kin. And through the grace of Mahadev, he acquireth the status of Ganpatya, blessed with prosperity and peace and high grace. Having arrived then at the Narmada, that river celebrated over the 3 worlds, and given oblations of water to the Pitris and the gods, one acquireth the fruit of the horse sacrifice. He that goeth into the southern ocean, practicing the brahmacharya mode of life, and with senses subdued, acquireth the fruit of the Agnistoma sacrifice and ascendeth to heaven. Having arrived at Chamanvati, with regulated diet and senses subdued, one acquireth at the command of Rantideva, the merit of the Agnistoma sacrifice. One must then go, O virtuous chief of warriors, to Arvuda, the son of Himamvat, where there was a hole through the earth in days of yore. There is the asylum of Vasistha, celebrated over the 3 worlds. Having resided for 1 night, one obtaineth the merit of the gift of 1,000 kin. He that, leading a brahmacharya mode of life, batheth in the tirtha called Pinga, obtaineth, O tiger among kings, the merit of the gift of 100 Kabila kin. One must next go, O king, to that excellent tirtha called Prabhasa. There Hutasana is always present in his own person. He, the friend of Pavana, O hero, is the mouth of all the gods. The man that with subdued and sanctified soul batheth in that tirtha, obtaineth merit greater than that of the Agnistoma or Atiritra sacrifices. Proceeding next to the spot where the Saraswati mingleth with the sea, one obtaineth the fruit of the gift of 1,000 kin and heaven also besides, O bull of the Bharata race, blazing forth for all time like Agni himself. He that with subdued soul batheth in the tirtha of the king of waters, and giveth oblations of water unto the Pitris and the gods, living there for 3 nights, blazeth forth like the moon, and obtaineth also the fruit of the horse sacrifice. One should next proceed, O best of the Bharata, unto the tirtha known by the name of Vardhana, where the Rishi, Durvasa had given a boon unto Vishnu. A man by bathing in Vardhana obtaineth the fruit of the gift of 1,000 kin. One should next proceed with subdued senses and regulated diet to Dwaravati, where by bathing in Pindaka, one obtaineth the fruit of the gift of gold in abundance. O blessed one, it is wonderful to relate that in that tirtha, to this day, coins with the mark of the lotus and lotuses also with the mark of the trident, are seen, O represser of heroes. And O bull among men, The presence of Mahadev is there. Arriving then, O Bharata, at the spot where the Sindhu mingleth with the sea, one should with subdued soul bathe in that tirtha of Varuna. And bathing there and giving oblations of water to the Pitris, the Rishis, and the gods, one acquireth, O bull of the Bharata race, the region of Varuna, and blazeth forth in effulgence of his own. Men of wisdom say that by worshipping the god known by the name of Shankukaneshwara, one acquireth 10 times the merit of the horse sacrifice. O bull of the Bharata race, having walked round that tirtha, one should, O thou foremost of the Kurus, go to that tirtha celebrated over the 3 worlds and known by the name of Dreamy. That tirtha cleanseth from every sin, and it is there that the gods including Brahma worship Maheswara. Having bathed there and worshipped Rudra surrounded by the other gods, one is freed from all sins since birth. It was there, O best of men, that Dreamy was adored by all the gods. Bathing there, O best of men, one obtaineth the fruit of the horse sacrifice. O thou of great intelligence, Vishnu the creator of the universe, after slaying the Daityas and Danvas, went thither to purify himself. O virtuous one should next proceed to Vasidra adored by all. The moment one arrives at that tirtha, one acquireth the fruit of the horse sacrifice. And, O thou best of the Kurus, by bathing there with subdued soul and rapt attention, and give ing oblations of water unto the gods and the Pitris, one ascendeth unto the region of Vishnu and is adored there. In that tirtha, O bull of the Bharata race, there is a sacred lake of the Vasis. By bathing there and drinking of its water, one becometh regarded of the Vasis. There is a celebrated tirtha of the name of Sindhutama, which destroyeth every sin. O best of men, by bathing there, one acquireth the fruit of the gift of gold in abundance. By arriving at Bhadratunga with sanctified soul and purity of conduct, one acquireth the region of Brahma and a high state of blessedness. There is then the tirtha of the Kumrikas of Indra, that is much resorted to by the Siddhas. O best of men, by bathing there, one obtaineth the region of Indra. In Kumrika there is another tirtha called Renuka, which is also resorted to by the Siddhas. A Brahmana by bathing there would become as bright as the moon. Proceeding next to the tirtha called the Pandumanda, with subdued sense and regulated diet, one obtaineth the fruit of the 5 sacrifices that have been mentioned one after another in the scriptures. Then, O king, one should go to the excellent region of Bhima. O best of the Bharatas, by bathing in the tirtha there, that is called Yoni, a man in his next birth becometh, O king, the son of a goddess, bearing earrings decked with pearls, and obtaineth also the merit of the gift of 100,000 kin. Proceeding next to Shrikunda, celebrated over the 3 worlds and worshipping the grandsire, one obtaineth the fruit of the gift of 1,000 kin. O virtuous one should then go to the excellent tirtha called Vimla, where to this day may be seen fishes of golden and silver hues. By bathing there, one soon acquireth the region of Vasva, and his soul being cleansed from every sin, he attaineth to a high state of blessedness. Proceeding next to Vitasta and giving oblations of water unto the Pitris and the gods, a man, O Bharata, obtaineth the fruit of the Vajapayana sacrifice. That sin-destroying tirtha known by the name of Vitasta, is situate in the country of the Kasumiras and is the abode of the Naga Takshaka. Bathing there, a man certainly obtaineth the fruit of the Vajapayana sacrifice, and his soul cleansed from every sin, he attaineth to a high state of blessedness. One should next proceed to Vadva celebrated over the 3 worlds. Bathing there with due rites in the evening, one should offer rice boiled in butter and milk, according to the best of his might, unto the deity of 7 flames. Men of wisdom say that a gift made here in honor of the Pitris, becometh inexhaustible. The Rishis, the Pitris, the gods, the Gandharvas, several tribes of Apsaras, the Guhayakas, the Kinnaras, the Yakshas, the Siddhas, the Vidyadharas, the Rakshasas, Daityas, Rudras, and Brahma himself, O king, having with subdued senses, accepted a course of austerities for 1,000 years in order to move Vishnu to grace, cooked rice in milk and butter and gratified Keswa with oblations, each offered with 7 rice. And, O king, the gratified Keswa thereupon conferred on them the 8-fold attributes called Ashwarya and other objects that they desired. And having bestowed upon them these, that god disappeared in their sight like lightning in the clouds. And it is for this, O Bharata, that Tirtha became known by the name of Saptacharu, and if one offered a charu there to the 7-flamed deity, he obtained merit superior to that of the gift of 100,000 kin, to that of 100 Rajasuya sacrifices, as also of 100 horse sacrifices. Leaving Vadva, O king, one should then proceed to Rodrapada, and beholding Mahadev there one obtaineth the merit of the horse sacrifice. Proceeding then, with subdued soul and leading a brahmacharya mode of life, to Manimat, and residing there for 1 night, one acquireth, O king, the merit of the Agnistoma sacrifice. One should then go, O king, to Devika celebrated over the whole world. It was there, O bull of Bharata race, that as heard by us, the Brahmanas first sprang into existence. There also is the region of the holder of the trident, a region that is celebrated over the world. Having bathed in Devika and worshipped Maheswara by offering him, to the best of one's might, rice boiled in milk and butter, a man obtaineth, O bull of the Bharata race, the merit of a sacrifice that is capable of filling every desire. There also is another Tirth of Rudra called Kamakya, which is much resorted to by the gods. Bathing there, a man speedily obtaineth success. By touching also the water of Yajana, Brahmavaluka and Pushpamvan, one becometh free from sorrow in afterlife. The learned have said that the sacred Tirtha of Devika, the resort of the gods and the rishis, is 5 yojanas in length and half a yojana in breadth. One should then, in due order, proceed, O king, to Durgasatra. There the gods with Brahma at their head, the Siddhas, and the greatest rishis, with regulated vows and the recitation and acceptance of the preliminary pledge, perform the long extending sacrifice. O king, by going only to Dirghasatra or repressor of foes, one obtaineth merit that is superior, O Bharata, to that of the Rajasuya or the horse sacrifice. One should next proceed with subdued senses and regulated diet to Vinasana, where Saraswati disappearing on the breast of Meru, reappeareth at Chamasa, Shivodvela and Nagadvela. Bathing in Chamasodvela one obtaineth the merit of the Agnistoma sacrifice. Bathing in Shivodvela, one acquireth the merit of the gift of 1,000 kin. And bathing in Napodvela, one obtaineth the region of the Nagas. One should proceed, next, to the inaccessible Tirtha of Shasayana, where the cranes, O Bharata, disappearing in the form of Sasas, reappear every year in the month of Kartika, and bathe, O blessed chief of the Bharata race, in the Saraswati. Bathing there, O tiger among men, one blazeth forth like the moon, and obtaineth, O bull of the Bharata race, the merit of the gift of 1,000 kin. One should next proceed, O thou of the Kuru race, to Kumakoti, with subdued senses, and bathing there, worship the gods and the Pitris. By doing this, one obtaineth the merit of the gift of 10,000 kin, and raiseth all his ancestors to higher regions. One should next, O virtuous one, proceed with subdued soul to Rudrakoti, where in olden days, O king, 10 millions of munis had assembled. And, O king, filled with great joy at the prospect of beholding Mahadev, the rishis assembled there, each saying, I will first behold the God. I will first behold the God. And, O king, in order to prevent disputes amongst those rishis of subdued souls, the Lord of Yoga, by the help of his yoga power, multiplied himself into 10 million forms, and stood before every one of them. And every one of these rishis said, I have seen him first. And gratified, O king, with the deep devotion of those munis of subdued souls, Mahadev granted them a boon, saying, From this day your righteousness shall grow, and, O tiger among men, one that bathes, with a pure mind, in Rudrakoti obtaineth the merit of the horse sacrifice and delivereth his ancestors. One should next proceed, O king, to that highly sacred and celebrated region where the Saraswati mingles with the sea. Thither, O king, the gods with Brahma at their head and rishis with wealth of asceticism repair for adoring Keswa on the 14th day of the lighted fortnight of the month of Chaitra. Bathing there, O tiger among men, one obtaineth the merit of giving away gold in abundance, and his soul being cleansed from every sin, he ascendeth to the region of Brahma. It is there, O king, that the rishis have completed many a sacrifice. By a trip to that spot one obtaineth the merit of the gift of 1,000 kin. Thus ends the 82nd section in the Tirthaitara Parva of the Vana Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.